It's the end of the day with Ray. Hello, my friends. Well, folks, today we're going to jump in that gigantic, sharp, interactive board. I want to share my thoughts on Brothers FY 2024. You know, I'm looking at Brothers financials, and I'm looking at the fourth quarter for FY 2024. They have an operating profit ratio percentage of 2.7%. And I'm scratching my head thinking, that's pretty damn low. There was no impairment charges that I could see. There was no one-off charges that I could see. They just produced an operating profit ratio of less than 3%. And I'm like, this just seems very low. So I went back to the year 2016. 9 years worth of numbers. There was only 3 quarters within those 36 quarters that produced less operating profit ratio than the fourth quarter of FY 2024. And each one of those 3 quarters, the reason they produced such a miserable operating profit ratio was because they had a one-off or an impairment charge. And then I'm thinking, is this an alarm bell? What's going on at Brother? What caused their fourth quarter to have less than 3% operating profit? Ladies and gentlemen, I've been saying for a while now that Brother had a great opportunity. I'm thinking it's slowly going away from them. To go in there and disrupt those oversold, overspec'd, and overserviced A3 machines in businesses all over the world. I believe when they came out with their workhorse machine, good intentions, we're going to go out there and we're going to fight, we're going to become this A4 provider all over the world. The numbers just don't show that they're actually getting any kind of real momentum in that. And I always question, why the hell didn't they make that workhorse inkjet based? And when I'm looking at their financial presentation, I'm even more thinking, why the hell didn't they make that workhorse series inkjet based? So without any further ado, let's jump on the board. Let's talk about their top line revenue for the year of $6 billion. Their operating profit for the year was $482.1 million, or 8%. And folks, at the end of the day, you know, Brother produces a pretty good operating profit. They're not the best in the industry by a long shot, but 8% is pretty damn good when you're looking at some of these other numbers. But my question is, that fourth quarter, could that be an indication of things to come? And it's going to be really interesting to see what they do in the first, second, and third, and fourth quarters of the upcoming year they're in right now, which started in April. Let's look at the revenue by divisions. I'm not going to go through all of them. I want to focus on P&S, that's the print business, and the Domino business, that's an industrial print business. Let's look at those two categories. In the PS, the print business, $3.8 billion in revenue for FY 2024. They had an operating profit of $406.3 million, or 10.8%. But ladies and gentlemen, that print business for the Brother conglomerate represents 84.3% of their operating profit. Extremely important to Brother, that print business, wouldn't you say? That's why I believe they really need to focus and pay attention on what they're doing, and they really need to have their aspirations in the right place. Let's look at that Domino business group. That's their industrial print business. You know, for a while I've been telling both Konica and Ricoh, you know, you guys, both Konica and Ricoh, their industrial print business is like a lemonade stand compared to what Brother does. You know, Brother's revenue for the Domino business group for FY 2024 was $823.6 million. You know, we're going to see Ricoh's and Konica's numbers coming out here soon, but it's going to be less than $300 million, each one of those, in their industrial print business. If you look at the operating profit for Brother in the Domino business group, it was 3%. $24.8 million. It represents 5.1% of Brother's total operating profit. But ladies and gentlemen, that Domino business group has given Brother some issues. And, you know, there was impairment charges. As a matter of fact, those 3 quarters that produced a lower operating profit ratio than the fourth quarter of 2024, those impairment charges were all around Domino. This thing's been a little bit of a hiccup for Brother. And they can make the top line revenue, but they got to figure out how to make that more profitable. And they need to figure that out really quick. And quite honestly, I think a lot of the aspirations that a lot of these folks have around this industrial print business, I just think there's a lot more hype than reality in that space. And I think that all the players that are in that space have to really start paying attention to what really is being printed in the industrial print space. What is this great inkjet technology in the industrial space really gonna print and drive revenue and profits? Is it going to be around documents? Is it going to be around labels? Or is it going to be around all the other things that we could see industrial inkjet printing on? Just some things to think about, ladies and gentlemen. I will say this, one of the things I'm noticing here is that our friends over at Brother seem to be becoming a lot like Konica in the sense that we got this other category where we can wipe out $138 million worth of operating profit and no one really knows what the hell that is. And I just wonder sometimes when we see those numbers. Just wonder. They're going to make some changes over there, Brother. Another kind of Konica Minolta move. And I'm not happy with this move because they're taking an area that they've struggled in, which is that Domino business group, and they're going to kind of reclassify it on the financials. They're going to put it in a category called IP, industrial printing. Well, that makes sense. It is an industrial print machine. But then they're going to include this printing and automation. They're going to show one number, and it says right here, sub-businesses within PS and IP and machinery business disclose sales revenue only. So they're not going to tell us, what the operating profit is for Domino going forward. It's just going to be for the IP industrial printing group as a whole. And folks, I struggle with that. The Domino Business Group is Brother's worst performing group from a financial position. It's cost them 3 impairment charges, over the last few years. And at the end of the day, let's not worry about managing that operating profit in that group. Let's lump some other stuff in there. Let's see if we can hide some stuff. That's what it looks like to me. Here, let's talk about this quarter. I went through all of it, ladies and gentlemen. 36 quarters. In the fourth quarter, they had a 2.7%. I put the word wow there. And we need to pay attention to this because if you think about Brother and you look at the quarters and how they produce operating profit, they usually do a pretty good job. Even in 2024, the first quarter they were 10.2%, second quarter 7.9%, third quarter 11%, fourth quarter, boom, in the toilet, 2.7%. They ended up with an 8%. But ladies and gentlemen, when you look at how low that is, it's not just that these other quarters beat that 2.7% over these 9 years or those 36 quarters. They were 59% lower than all quarters. If you look at all 36 quarters and you find the lowest one, well, guess what? The fourth quarter of 2024 was 59% lower than that. And there was one other quarter where it was only 50% lower. But that should be an alarm bell. What caused this? And here's all the numbers. And ladies and gentlemen, when I looked at the operating profit for each one of these years, let's go back to 2016 as a total company. In 2016, 9.2%. 2017, 9.6%. 2018, 10.5%. 2019, 10.6%. 2020, 6.8%. 2021, 12%. In 2020, by the way, is when they had an impairment charge around the Domino Business Group. In 2022, they had an impairment charge around the Domino Business Group. Operating profit for that year was 6.8%. And in 2023, it was 6.1%. So we have 3 years where it's less than 7%. 2020, 2022, and 2023, those were the years we had this impairment charge fiasco going on. And folks, let me just remind you, here we are in 2024, no impairment charge. We were at 8%. So we're seeing a decline in operating profit at Brother. Whether they want to admit it or not, and they want to say, hey, we had a better year because we didn't have an impairment charge like we did last year. They actually said that in their financial chart. I was like, what the hell? I love when these folks brag about what they did the current year. We did something so good, but they're measuring it against a total damn disaster. It's like, you ever hear about raising the bar? Well, when the bar is like at the ground level and then you could jump over it, that's not a big achievement. It's when the bar gets higher and you jump over it that the achievement comes, right? Just amazing how they all do that. I wanted to look at cost of sales and general administrative expenses since the year 2021. This is kind of interesting. In 2021, general and administrative expenses were 31.3% of the revenue. In 2024, for this year that ended in March of 2025, it was 34.7%. So we have an increase. And folks, a 3%, 4%, 3.5% increase when you're looking at billions of dollars is a big number. I'm looking at the cost of sales. You know, in 2021, it was 56.8%. In 2022, it was their highest year for cost of sales, 60.8%. In 2023, it was 56.8%. In 2024, their cost of sales went to 56.4%. The problem is, guess what? The general and administrative expenses went up. So their cost of sales went down, the general administrations went up. Are they going to continue to go up? Are your cost of sales going to continue to go down? But let's look at this. This is a chart they put in their financials, and it talks about the number of units. Are the units up or down year on year? And folks, I don't get it. I don't get what Brothers' thinking is. Okay? Because right here it says, growth rate of hardware units year on year. We got laser at the top, inkjet at the bottom. I've got my magic pen in my hand. Okay, for FY 2024, growth rate of hardware units year over year. Well, guess what? Inkjet was 14% growth. Laser was minus 5%. Wouldn't it have been nice if that workhorse was inkjet based, is what I'm thinking. If you look at the inkjet versus the laser's not having a lot of growth. It's a little bit disturbing. I mean, ladies and gentlemen, you can start right here in quarter 3 of 2023, 2023 quarter 1, minus 1%. Next quarter, minus 21%, minus 8%, minus 6%, minus 13%, minus 2%, minus 6%. What's going on? I thought the laser was going to do it for them. They were going to go in there and they were going to wipe out all these oversold, overspec'd, overserviced A3 machines. I'm bringing that into the conversation now. I want to say overserviced because we all know that A3s take a whole lot more service than A4s. And maybe if Brother focuses on that aspect of it, they'll understand the importance of making those workhorses with inkjet-based technology. I'm just thinking. Maintaining is not a growth strategy, I put on this slide. It says here, pursue growth in the industrial area, mainly in the machinery business, and maintain profitability in the P&S business. Maintain profitability. You know, brother, it's always good to focus on profitability. There's no doubt about that. It's one of my ongoing messages. But you have to be able to maintain your profitability and grow at the same time. And I don't think maintaining profitability the way you're talking about it here on this slide is any kind of growth aspirations in taking those A4 machines you have out in the marketplace and putting them in businesses all over the world. Maintaining. Maybe change the game in the marketplace is a better strategy than planning losses based on tariffs. You know, everybody's talking about the tariffs and everybody wants to, here's what's going to happen when the tariffs come in. And I'm like, what the hell? The tariffs are going to come one day, they don't come the next day. What the hell? They're going to come, they don't come. And even if they come, ladies and gentlemen, what we need to be focusing on is end users. We need to be focusing on what those damn end users want from our industry. And quit trying to give end users things they don't want because it's good for our industry, because sooner or later that causes a collapse, right? I started that A4 revolution in 2017. We're in 2025 now. And we all know now, because I also started the inkjet revolution. We know that inkjet is so much more better than laser. But yet OEM after OEM still wants to fight this. And the ones that could actually do it are following into the trap of laser. Because laser's what's comfortable for the industry. They love laser, they love toner, they can't even think about inkjet. Ladies and gentlemen, if you look at the printing solutions here in America revenue, $1.3 billion. $1.3 billion of that $3.8 billion total print revenue. If you look at Americas for the labeling, it's $219.3 million. If you look into the Americas for the Domino Business Group, it's $215.9 million. I think that's interesting. I mean, basically in Americas for Domino's, they produce almost the same amount of revenue as Konica and Ricoh do with their industrial print globally. That's a pretty interesting number. But it's got to get more profitable, and you can't be having impairment charges year after year, right? Printing automation in America, $67.6 million. So, ladies and gentlemen, Brother has some opportunities. I suggest that Brother call up Qtrs and join the club. I'm thinking Canaan's going to join it. Brother joins it. Y'all could have a lot of fun. And then you could get distribution. You could convince Ricoh and Toshiba Tech and Okidata that you're going to be the one that makes the inkjet A4s to go wipe out those oversold and overspec'd and overserviced A3s. Brother, you got some aspirations, but your aspirations aren't talking about wiping out oversold and overspec'd and overserviced A3s. And I'm just thinking that you talk like you're bold, but I don't believe you're bold. It's not just about replacing the oversold with the overserviced needs. It's about changing the damn game. It's about the inkjet better experience. Anyone can learn to play a game. However, it's boldness that changes the game. Brother, can you really be bold? Can you really go change the game? I don't think you can. And I'm giving you the challenge. Go change the game. You got some good products. You got good intentions with your A4 equipment. But you got to go change the game. You can't just be another laser-based A4. Because everybody watching me knows this. Status quo is the killer of all that'll be invented. Don't get stuck there, and I'll see y'all tomorrow.